Welcome to Commander's Comments. I'm your producer for the evening, Harrison, and I'm joined by our newly elected Commander in Chief, Walter D. Donnie Kennedy.
Good afternoon, Moose, or shall I call you more officially, Mr. Harrison Dawes. Good to see you.
Good to
I
see you
was
too, Commander.
Yesterday. I was on a Zoom meeting in Louisiana division meeting, and I was talking to Commander Paul Gremlin, and I told him, I said, "Well, this time I'll be on Commander's Comment, and unlike 6 years ago when he and I first got this idea of Commander's Comment started, we don't have to drive to Florida, Mississippi, and tape this, so we do it live, thanks to people like you and Connor and getting this mechanism started. And I really appreciate you, sir. And I'm going to jump ahead of myself just a little bit since you're on here with me right now. Our Chief of Heritage Operation will be Paul Graham from South Carolina. Next month, he will be on here, but I just want to introduce to everyone our Deputy Chief of Heritage Operation and Promotion, Harrison Dawes. So, Harrison, thank you for accepting that position, and we're going to work you, boy. You're muted, I think.
This new equipment. Thank you, Commander. It's an honor. My heart's in Heritage Operations. Seeing you with that position, Chief of Heritage Operations, a couple years ago, I think that we can honestly lead the attack to the Yankee invader, I'll call them.
Absolutely. And my first thing I want to do is to all the members of the Sons of Confederate Veterans, first, from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank you for allowing me to serve in the next 2 years as your Commander-in-Chief. I serve for you. I serve with you. I am not the boss. I am not the dictator. I am not the general in charge. Yes, I am the, quote, commander-in-chief, but the commander-in-chief can only lead people who are willing to follow him. And if you don't think I'm doing something right, you tell me and we'll listen. I am not beyond taking advice. So please keep that in mind. But I do want to thank the membership of the Sons of Confederate Veterans for honoring me with this. Now, one of the things I want to do, I want to start out, Moose, by reading the Constitution. Now, this is our SCV Constitution, and I want people to understand something. Very often, during the war, after the war, and even now, when people say, what was the South fighting for? Was it slavery? And the answer is always no, we were fighting for our rights, or we were fighting for states' rights, which includes our rights. We were fighting for a type of government that our founding fathers in 1776 gave us. Now, Ron and I especially, we push the idea of political action, political activity. And so many times people misinterpret that as meaning political party, partisan politics. No, that is not what we're talking about. Our 501(c), our tax exempt status allows us to promote the ideas and principles for which this organization was established. Now, in our Constitution, I've got a copy. This is the SCV Constitution. I'm going to see where I highlighted here. In the preamble of the Constitution, it talks about, in the name of a reunited country, the Sons of Confederate Veterans declare, quote, allegiance to the Constitution of the United States of America, largely written, expounded, and defended by men of the South, a strict construction of all sections conferring power upon the federal government, and the implied and understood reservation to the states arising thereof, and a general attitude of opposition to further amendments thereof. In the preamble of the Sons of Confederate Veterans Constitution, it clearly states that we are to vindicate the cause for which our ancestors fought, and that cause was for a constitution that was strictly interpreted, conferring powers to the federal government. In other words, the federal government didn't create us. We conferred powers to the federal government, and the federal government should only act on the powers that they possess. Everything else It's understood reservation to the states arising there. So the states have the power, the residual power. The federal government has only limited power. That's in our Constitution. By promoting that concept, we are not infringing upon our tax exempt status. Only if we're so dumb enough to get out there and say, vote for Harrison Dawes, he's the best candidate out there. That would be an infringement. That would cause us problem. Or if we say, don't vote for Harrison Dawes because he's a dog. He raises dogs. We know he's a dog. So don't vote for him. That would infringe upon the tax exempt status. If we said, don't vote for the Know Nothing Party because they're a bunch of idiots and they don't know anything, that would be an infringement. We cannot do that. We cannot engage in partisan political activity, but by political activity, that includes addressing issues that are sacred to us as an organization. So that, and when I say we need to become politically active, that means in your community, it's your job to make sure every elected official in your community knows that the SCV is out there and we're promoting good citizenship and we have issues that are very sacred to us, and we will fight you if you infringe upon our rights. So I want to make sure everybody understands that, because I've had some people come to me and say, oh, you Kennedys, y'all are going to cause us to lose our tax exempt status because you're political. No, we're not political. But always remember this. Those people, if they want to take away our tax exempt status, they can do it anytime they want to because they got the power. Until we make sure that we have a counter power to counter their action, we will liable to suffer that one day. I think it was John C. Calhoun said that the only way to counter a big government power is to have a reserve power in the people to do so. I'm paraphrasing the heck out of John C. Calhoun, but he did say that. Now, before I get on a tangent and spend my whole hour preaching to the choir, and I know I'm preaching to the choir because most people right now who are listening probably already agree with what I've said. But I do want to introduce, for anybody who's out there and who may be watching this video next week and a little bit further on, I want to introduce you to the General Executive Council. Who are we? How did we get here? What do we do? And more or less give you an overview of the new GEC. Now, the General Executive Council is the organization or the group of men who will run the day-to-day operation when we're called into a meeting of the SCV, if the SCV is not in convention. Now, once the SCV goes into convention and until we are no longer in convention, the convention rules. After that, the GEC is the one that rules. Now, you have 16 members on the GEC, 8 of whom are elected by the members of the Sons of Confederate Veterans. That's 8 of them. It's your commander-in-chief, your lieutenant commander-in-chief, your army commander, your 3 army commanders, and 3 army councilmen. Then you also have 5 appointed members who are appointed by the existing or the new commander-in-chief with the approval of the elected GEC. So they're not just appointed by the commander-in-chief and he may get anybody he wants. It has to be approved by those who have been elected by you, the membership. That's 5 members. And then we have 3 past commanders-in-chief who have served as commander-in-chief, and the 3 most recent ones still remain on the GEC. They are a vital input. It helps people like me coming on to talk to people who have been there 2, 4, 6 years in the past with issues that's coming up. I gave one example at somewhere, it may have been at the convention, when we had an issue about a piece of property that we had to deal with, and the property issue began in Commander Larry McClooney's administration. And we had to look to Larry, say, Commander McClooney, what exactly was this about? Can you clear it? And he remembered all about it. So it helps to have these people on board on your GEC. They're voting members. You elected them. Sure, they were elected to their office, but you're the membership are the ones who elected. So today, after the convention, we had a new member of the GEC, CIC Commander-in-Chief, Jason Brochures. He's the most recent Commander-in-Chief. So he stepped on past Commander-in-Chief Thomas Strain. He stepped off. He served not only his 2 years as Commander-in-Chief, but he also served 6 years on the board to advise and consent and to help us move things along. So kudos to Tom Strain for his effort. Kudos for the 3 members who are there now, and especially kudos to the people who are volunteered their effort, their time to serve on your General Executive Council. So I hope that clears that up. And with that, I would like to introduce you to these people. I think, Moose, I think you've got some photographs here. Our Lieutenant Commander-in-Chief. There we go. That's he and his lovely bride there, Annette. That is Tony Griffin. Tony is from Virginia. I've had the pleasure in the last 2 years working with Tony over several heritage issues and talking about some of the great things that he and other people in Virginia were responsible for. And I'm greatly looking forward to continue working with Tony as our Lieutenant Commander-in-Chief in promoting the South and promoting our Southern heritage. He's a good Virginia boy, and I look forward to working with him. Now, we also have from each Army, we have an Army Commander and an Army Councilman. And I'm going to look at the Army of Northern Virginia. We'll go from the sea to the river, Moose, instead of from the river to the sea. All right, our commander of the Army of Northern Virginia is Jamie Graham. He's from South Carolina, past division commander in South Carolina, and another great patriot. I'm just delighted to be able to work with him. And his councilman for the Army of Northern Virginia is Randy Burbidge. Now, y'all know Randy if you've been to any convention in the last seemed like 50 years. He's the guy that up till now has been handing out all the rewards, awards, and medals and delegates. He's done a fantastic job there, and I'm looking forward to working with Randy on the GEC for the next 2 years. Now, that's your Army of Northern Virginia. You folks in the Army of Northern Virginia, if you don't like these 2 guys, it's not our fault. We didn't elect them. You elected them. And I think y'all did a fine job. You did a great job. And now let's look at the Army of Tennessee. Who do we have as commander of the Army of Tennessee? I don't know. Let's see. I think it's a guy by the name of Jones. Soft-spoken, quiet fella, Carl Jones. Do we have? There you go. Carl is an interesting character. Ron and I have often laughed about working with Carl because Carl is just like Ron and myself. We are really into causes and consequences of the war. We're not really strong in battles and leaders. Some people are very strong in battles and leaders. And Carl will admit, I like battles and leaders, but that's not my forte. My forte, my strength, my thing that I really go for is really constitutional issues. How the South was right. We know the South was right. Now let's prove it. Let's show everybody how the South was right. And Carl is an excellent constitutional scholar, and he presents the constitutional argument for the South, for the rights that we as Southerners believed in then and now. And I really, really enjoy working with Carl. The councilman for the Army of Tennessee is, and by the way, in case y'all didn't know, Carl's from Alabama. The councilman from the Army of Tennessee is Roy Hudson, another good friend of mine from Florida, the great southern state of Florida. And I don't know if y'all know this or not, and Roy, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Florida was the only Confederate state that their capital was not taken by the Yankees before the end of the war. And that's a little bit of trivia. I'll get Roy to check it out from me. Calvin Hart, Commander Hart may also help us on that. I believe that is correct. And then we move across the Mississippi River into the Army of the Trans-Mississippi. we have a new commander of the Army of the Trans-Mississippi. There we go. John McCammon, Cammon, McCammon. John is the past commander of the Texas division. So he's been around a while working with the Texas boys. And again, I've been in Louisiana. We work very closely with the Texas boys, especially when we're doing things around Pleasant Hill and Mansfield and the reenactments and all the things that we're doing there. Now, we have also a councilman from the Army of the Trans-Mississippi. He's very little known, very soft-spoken. No one probably knows him, so I'm going to have to be slow to introduce him. His name is, I'm going to call him by his nickname, Chuck McMichael. So Chuck has been around. Chuck is past commander-in-chief, and he's been a strong supporter of the South. I think I met Chuck maybe before he was in the SCV. He'll correct me, I'm sure, if I'm wrong. I think I met him at a reenactment years before he joined, or several years before he joined the SCV. I may be wrong there, but we were back then. Chuck and I were young people, and we were very actively involved in reenactment. I think he was in the 5th Louisiana back then, and I was in the 12th Louisiana, and we really enjoyed our time as reenactors. So there you have your 8 elected members of the General Executive Council. So that's your elected people. Now we're going to look at, I don't have any photographs of the appointed people, but I'll just go down the list here to the appointed people. Now remember, I appoint these people, but the GEC, the elected GEC, must approve. So it's almost like the Senate advise and consent when the president nominates someone to the Supreme Court. So this is a similar situation. So the chief of staff, my chief of staff is J.C. Hanna. J.C. Hanna is from Louisiana. He's past division commander in Louisiana and past commander of the Army of the Trans-Mississippi. And he has served several terms as our genealogist in chief. If you want to chase down an ancestor, if you got a question there, if JC can't find out, he knows somebody that can. So JC is a vital asset. He's my chief of staff. As a matter of fact, tomorrow morning, I'll be meeting JC here at my home, and he and I'll be driving to Georgia, and hopefully I get a chance to talk a little bit about a memorial service, a dedication service of a new monument there, Confederate monument in Georgia, and JC and I will be attending that. Probably the hardest job in any camp, any division, and in the GEC is the adjutant-in-chief. Oh boy, that is a job. That is one job I managed to scurry away from. But anyway, our adjutant-in-chief, y'all probably know him, past Commander Jimmy Hill, past commander of the Army of Tennessee, and I believe Alabama Division Commander too, if I'm correct.
Yes.
So and I'm going to tell you, Jimmy Hill is probably done more to help put that, especially the timeline and everything together in the museum. He has spent just innumerable hours working in that museum. He doesn't live, I don't know if he lives 4 hours, 3 hours from the museum. I mean, it's a drive, but it's not like me. It's about an 8-hour drive for me to get there. But he has done a lot of work. And when Ron and I were putting together the timeline for the reconstruction area, he was a immense assistance and help. So Jimmy Hill is our adjutant-in-chief. Now we go to the judge advocate-in-chief. Scott Hall is our judge advocate-in-chief. So I'm delighted that Scott was able to get back on board with us. I worked with Scott and through, I believe, the 3 administrations. I think Grambling, McClooney, and Brochures, we all worked with Scott. He is a tireless defender of the cause, and I really appreciate his effort. Now, our chief of heritage operation is someone that most SC people may not know, you will be getting to know him more in the next 2 years, is Paul Graham, Graham. We got a lot of G names in the GEC this time. Have you noticed?
We have a lot. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Paul Graham will be our Chief of Heritage Operation. Now, Paul he's from South Carolina. He's been a spokesman for the South Carolina Division, media spokesman. He's worked closely in his camp in Heritage Operation. But he and Dr. Clyde Wilson, and if y'all don't know Clyde Wilson, you really need to call it. Dr. Wilson is one of the, he is the premier authority for John C. Calhoun in the nation or the world. He might as well go ahead and admit it. But he and Dr. Wilson are the ones responsible for Shotwell Publishing. Shotwell Publishing is a premier pro-South, nothing woke about them whatsoever publishing company. Now, I know we've got several publishing companies that's affiliate members that are affiliated with the SCB are working with, but this is one of the larger ones, and I'm hoping it will continue to grow and do well. Most of the Kennedy books are published by Shotwell now. At one time, it was Pelican Publishing out of Gretna, Louisiana. They went defunct, and Shotwell is now taking that position, and I think they're the number one publishing house for pro-South material, along with others. There are others, especially Scopenon Press. Our editor-in-chief is also has Scopenon Press, Frank Powell. And Frank has several Kennedy books that they do also. And other than Kennedy books, they got some real good books too, I might add. So I'm going to add that before you throw it in, Moose. I know you was thinking that. So. All right.
Beat me to it.
Thank you. All right. Our chaplain in chief is Father Tom Hyder from Kentucky. Tom has been at one time, and I forget under whose administration it was, but he was the chief of Heritage Operation. He is an Anglican priest and just a fine Southern gentleman. And I've known Tom Hyder for quite a while, and I'm all excited about working with him. Now, that is your 5 non-elected voting members of the GEC. All these members that I've talked about right now has a vote on the GEC. Adam Southern is also more or less an ex officio member of the GEC. He's non-voting. He is a employee, but anytime we are working with things going on in SCV, we need his input as well. He's there daily. He knows what's going on. And I think these men give freely of their time, and I'm really proud to work with all of them, and we look forward to working with y'all. Now, I want to stress 2 things. So we're getting close to a Pop-Tart break. I'm going to give you about another 5, 6 minutes, 7 minutes moves, and then We'll go to Pop-Tart break. That's okay. But there's 2 things I want to insist in my administration that I will insist on. Number 1, I'm a strict construction constitutionalist. I believe in following the Constitution, the letter of the law. And that means that if you have an issue coming up, the first thing we're going to do, I'm going to call Frank Powell, my parliamentarian, and say, how does this comport with the Constitution? Can we do this? Is this proper? I believe in that. And also in that same vein, we must follow the chain of command. If your camp has a problem, don't pick up the phone and call the CIC, the lieutenant commander, or even your Army commander. If you have a problem in your camp, here's the chain of command. You deal with your camp. If your camp can't solve it, you go to your brigade commander. That's what he's there for. You go to your brigade. If they can't solve it, then you go to your division, and you keep working up the chain of command. From your division, you have an Army commander and councilman. You go to them. And then only after it's gone through those steps does it percolate up to the GEC. And there's a reason for that. We have somewhere in the neighborhood of 28,000 members. We have 800 camps. If every little problem went straight to the GEC, all we would do would be dealing with minutiae problems that should have been handled back at the local level. strict construction constitutionalist. This is the way I feel, and this is the way I will deal with that. Also, when we're dealing with our judge advocate in chief, he is not a pro bono lawyer for the SCV. And y'all remember that. We cannot, every time some issue comes up, call our judge advocate in chief and say, hey, we need to sue so and so get busy suing them. Remember, lawyers have a thing called billable hours. Lawyers' time equals money. If our judge advocate, and I don't care if you're dealing with from the GEC side or your camp level or your division level, if you always pushing him to do this suit, that suit, check this, do that, it cuts into their billable hours. They only have so many hours they can work. They still have a family and everything. So I'm going to insist that if you have a problem, let's just say Moose's camp decided that their county did something wrong and they want to sue that county. And they're going to file the suit. They say they're going to pay for it, but you realize no division, no camp can sue without approval from the General Executive Council. We'll give the approval, but we will not fund that endeavor unless, I'm going to ask these questions to you. Moose, what has your camp done in the last 2 years to prevent this action from happening? And you'll say, well, what do you mean? Well, have you done anything to make the SCV well known in your community? Have you contacted your elected officials? When y'all cleaned the cemetery, did you take a picture of that and send it in to these elected officials? Say the SCV is working hard to clean this cemetery. And oh, by the way, there's a World War I veteran there. We also cleaned it because we are America's oldest continuously existing veterans organization. You see, by doing things like that, sending that letter to VFW, American Legion, patriotic groups in your communities, you're letting the community know that the SCV is out there and they're active. How many radio ads have you been running in your area? How many Dixie Defenders have you given out? How much contact have you made with other social groups? When your camp had a Lee Jackson banquet, how many invitations were sent out to your county commissioners? How about that judge that's going to be hearing this case? Did he get a letter from y'all inviting him to hear Dr. Samuel Mitchum, a well-known author and historian? He'll be speaking about the war. Send that judge a letter and invite him in. Now, he may never show up, but guess what? He will have been put on notice that the SCV in your county, Moose, is busy, and they had a well-known speaker at their meeting, and those people invited me. All right. That's some of the questions I'm going to ask. And if you look at me like a deer in the headlight and say, well, we didn't know to do that. Well, I'm going to say, well, where the heck have you been for the last 6 years? Because Paul Gremlin was the first one who said we've got to take back the narrative. That was 6 years ago, folks. Paul Gremlin boldly stood up and said we have to take back the narrative. This is how you take back the narrative. You put your information in front of all those people who have a tendency to waffle and to cave in to Black Lives Matter and the NAACP and all that leftist woke mentality. So I'm going to be on this. So don't come to me. And if you come to, you realize I'm going to be asking these questions. So that is something to remember. One of the things that I really will ask you when you come to me, I'm saying all these politicians who just voted to maybe talk about removing that Confederate monument or banning the SCV from a local parade, how many letters have y'all sent to these elected officials showing them our poll that proves that 60% of Americans agree with us, and that in the South, 85 to 95% of Southerners agree with us? Have you told them that? Because that puts those elected officials on notice that they're on the wrong side of history and that the SCV is on the right side and the SCV is getting busy and the SCV is not going to take it anymore. Have you been involved in get out the vote efforts? that does not impinge upon your tax exempt status. Get out the vote, as long as you're not saying get out the vote for this candidate or this party. And as a matter of fact, I'm running ahead of myself, Moose, but if we could get that ad that I was telling you about, let's see if, because this is one of the ads that will hopefully be running in September. And I may jump.
Good, Commander.
Go ahead.
All right.
I think that was the end of it.
September is set aside to celebrate the Constitution. The Sons of Confederate Veterans believes the original Constitution should be honored and followed by all Americans. As members of the Sons of Confederate Veterans, we often express our love for our heritage by saying that the South was right in 1861 because America was right in 1776. 85 years after our colonial ancestors fought the war for American independence, our Confederate ancestors fought the war for Southern independence. Both fought for the right of self-government against a powerful and overbearing central government. The Sons of Confederate Veterans encourages Americans to learn about America's great Constitution and the Republic of Sovereign States it created. Learn more at scv.org. That's scv.org.
Very good. Very good. Now, see, folks, that sets the stage for something that's coming up in November. And we're going to talk about that right after our Pop-Tart break. And I think we're almost looks like 7:30, 7:31 too. So, Moose, if you're ready for a Pop-Tart break, we can do that. And then we'll come back and talk a little bit more about what's in the works for the SCV starting this month. All right, you muted yourself. Turn your mic on.
I muted myself for the ad because I was afraid I was going to squeak or do something, and I wanted people to listen to the radio ad.
That was a great ad. By the way, who was the gentleman that was voicing that ad? Do you know him?
It sounds like the guy who pays gives me my paycheck, but he sounds a bit more direct with my work responsibilities, if I remember correctly.
And he is our historian in chief, by the way. I might mention that. Let's go to a Pop-Tart break, and we'll come back and talk a little bit more about upcoming events that we got planned for the SCV for the next month or two.
Yes, sir. And tonight's Pop-Tart break is sponsored by scvchat.com. Please support us there so we can get you all SCV and heritage news out to you as quickly as possible. Our Patreon to make sure that SCV Chat continues to fight the narrative and reclaim the narrative 1 week at a time in Creative Cockades. If you want a historically accurate cockade to honor your ancestor or Confederate hero, please go to Creative Cockades company.site today.
There is a place nestled in the rolling farmland of southern Middle Tennessee. A home constructed in 1837, nearly lost to the ravages of war. Saved by a servant and a Confederate general. A place where families loved and lost. If walls could talk, what stories could be told? If a place, a home, can feel love, loss, pain, surely this is one of those places. Nearby is a more recent structure, and inside are the stories of heroes and heroines, stories of battles won and lost, stories of sacrifices made by the people of its native soil. A place that will tell the true and complete story of the Southland and the war fought for its freedom. From the causes that led to the conflict to the modern-day struggles to protect Southern history. Historic Elm Springs and the Confederate Museum at Elm Springs are the general headquarters for the Sons of Confederate Veterans. a place where the story of the Southland and its historic struggle is preserved and told. Come and discover your history.
Very good, Moose. I enjoyed that. Hey, I was looking at that scene as the camera was pulling away. That was taken several years ago. Just wait until we get a new video as the camera is panning back from the headquarters, the museum, Elm Spring, and Forest Plaza, with General Forrest high up on his pedestal comes into view. Folks, that's going to be fantastic. I can't wait. And we'll talk a little bit. Hopefully I don't run out of time. I want to talk a little bit about that very issue. But right now, Moose, I want to talk about making the SCV camps a well-known entity, a well-known people, a well-known organization in your local community. If we do that, Moose, you don't have to worry about that town council or the board of supervisors coming to you and tell we're going to remove that nasty old Confederate monument. I firmly believe that in most areas of the South, and there will be a few that we probably are just lost to, but the vast majority people agree with us, and our polls have proven it. Not only the polls that we've done, but even the National Gallup polls have proven time and time again that Southerners in particular and Americans in general agree that Southern history should be respected and monuments shouldn't be destroyed. And of course, if you've been watching the news, Moose, you've seen where here recently in Washington, D.C., what was happening to the monuments there. Do you remember? Do you see that?
I did see it, and I was just in shock, really. It seems like what you have always said, Commander, is true. They attack us because we're the easiest ones to get to right now, but they don't like any of our heritage and history.
Absolutely. And you notice they pull down the United States flag. And I do not call that the American flag. I have this bone of contention. It is not the American flag. The Confederate flag is an American flag. The flag of the state of Louisiana or Texas is an American. For that matter, Oregon or Massachusetts is an American flag. All the flags of the Revolution, the Gadsden flag, the Appeal to Heaven, Betsy, they're all American flags. What they was burning was the United States flag, which really, really, really gets under my skin. Just like if they were desecrating a Confederate flag. So as you said, we told them, and we just got to speak louder and with a clearer voice that if you do not stop these people, it's not just us they're after, and it's not just the flag. I'm telling you, people, the U.S. Constitution is the ultimate object of their rage. That is what they're going to destroy. Remember, there's 3 places in the U.S. Constitution that defines and actually defends either the slave trade or slavery itself. And our neo-Marxist enemy are saying Robert E. Lee was a slaveholder, so therefore he cannot be respected. His monument must come down. That same line of illogical logic, that same ideas will be used to destroy ultimately attack and destroy the Constitution. And of course, what they want to do is replace it with a Marxist type of document. But if we don't get busy, that's going to happen. Now, how do we get busy? One thing, we make our SCV camps a well-known entity. Now, one of the ways that, and now listen, I wish there was a silver bullet. Man, I wish I had it right here. Here's a silver bullet, and this will solve all our problems. Just go to your camp and use this, and all our problems will be solved. It ain't going to happen, folks. But there are many little things that we can do, the cumulative effect of which is our ultimate victory. Now, one of the things that I'm suggesting that camps do, and some camps are already doing this, I think, is that identify somebody in your community that you know that is a, quote, Civil War buff, or a historian, someone who likes history, or someone who likes reenacting or something of that nature to do with the South or Southern history, or even just politics in general. He's not a member of the SCV, but he's interested. your camp should buy that gentleman a subscription to the Confederate Veteran Magazine. I'm working with headquarters now, and I think what we can do is have camps the ability for $20 a year to buy a subscription for someone like that. Now, I know that's just one person in one community, one magazine. It's not going to save the world. It's the first drop in the bucket when we've got to have a bunch of drops in there. But there's over 800 SCV camps. That's 800 people that can be influenced. Plus, remember, that magazine, more likely, it's going to sit around his house for a while. And you'll never know who's going to see that. So you'll increase your influence in the community just by that simple action. And what did it cost you? $20. You have a potential member, and you spreading the word about the SCV. Now, we just played in the ad for the Constitution. September is usually the month that the United States set aside to honor the Constitution. I'm suggesting that your camps, you can download that ad that you heard, take it to your radio station, and for $150, $200, you can buy, 5, 10 ads that can be ran. Now, again, don't expect running those ads for a week is going to cause a flood of people to come into your organization, your camp. But what it does, it begins to set the stage. People will hear about the Sons of Confederate Veterans praising the Constitution, defending the Constitution. It puts the SCV in a good light. And when you're out recruiting people, let's say at a gun show, you'll have them say, oh, yeah, I've heard about y'all. I like what y'all believe about the Constitution. It makes it easier for you to gain members like that. It will not bring a whole lot of members into your organization. It make it easier for you to recruit. Recruitment is still left up to you. But what we can do is make it easier to recruit. Now, who else other than the general public hears that ad? Politicians. They hear that ad. And when they hear that ad, they'll begin to know that the SCV is active in our community. And again, hey, we don't want to aggravate these people because they've already proven that, hey, they can get active. They can do things, and we don't want them running against us. Now, that's in September. In November, we have a general election coming up. Again, we must not endorse or oppose any person running for president. We cannot and must not and will not endorse or oppose any political party. We cannot do that, and we must. We are a non-political organization, so we can't do that. But what can we do? Well, we can encourage our fellow citizens to get out and vote. This is called Get Out the Vote effort. When we do that, we are not only are we letting the general public know, hey, this is a patriotic organization that wants good citizenship, wants people to vote. Again, politicians hear that, and we want them to hear that. We want them to hear about the Sons of Confederate Veterans. Now, unfortunately, I don't have that ad already taped, but I want to read you a proposed ad this is a 30-second ad, not a one minute, just a 30-second ad. It says, the Sons of Confederate Veterans, America's oldest continuously operating veterans organization, encourages all Americans to perform their patriotic duty and vote in the upcoming election. Our republic depends upon your involvement. The Sons of Confederate Veterans encourages you to be a patriot. Vote. That's the end of the thing. Now, it does two things. It lets the world know, Sons of Confederate Veterans out here, we're promoting patriotism and we're promoting good citizenship. And guess what? Your general public will hear it, but politicians will hear it. This is what I mean by getting political, because these politicians are the wormy, gutless, spineless individuals, just like in the legislature of Mississippi, that almost in the dark back halls ripped down the real official flag of the sovereign state of Mississippi and inflicted the god-awful, ugliest flag in the world upon us. They did, and it was not the liberal neo-Marxists doing it. It was, quote, our own kind, our own people. Well, because they did it, because they felt like, well, there's no blowback. It's only positive for us. And, the National Party will really praise us for doing this, and we get to climb the political ladder. Well, what we need to do to be able to kick that damn ladder out from under them, and we will do it if we get busy. And this is one of the ways we can do it. Let the community know who the SCV is. Put the politicians on notice that the SCV will not tolerate being kicked around anymore. Our heritage is sacred, and we are chartered by our very charter. We are commanded to vindicate the cause of the South, of our Confederate veterans. And remember, as I said at the beginning of this program, our SCV Constitution directs us to this type of government, a government of limited power, where the federal government has only specific delegated powers, and everything else is left to we, the people of the sovereign states. It's called states' rights, real states' rights. And that is what we are doing. And so this is something that we need to do. And I'm hoping that in the future we can do that. Now, I'm going to have this 30-second ad put together in the Confederate Legion. We'll have it available. And pretty soon I'll be contacting brigade leaders in each division and saying, this is what we need for you to do. Can get your camps involved in this. If one camp can't do it, if they say we don't have enough money, then you get 2 camps together, get 3 camps together. You've got to get busy and let the world know who we are, and that we will not tolerate having our rights and our liberties and our Confederate heroes slandered as they have been in the past. Now, one of the things I really want to do, and I'm running a little short on time here, one of the things that we really need to do, the Forest Plaza, folks, we are getting very close to the numbers, the dollar-wise number that we need to put that plaza back together. If I can get another 300 to 350 people to join the 21st Century Confederate Heroes, and I'll talk a little bit about that right before the end of the program, we're taking 20% of each dollar that's put into that program. We're now putting it to the Forest Plaza so that we will have that Forest Plaza ready to go up. And when we do that, we want to celebrate 2 things. It's not just the reconstruction or the rebuilding or the reestablishment of the Forest Plaza. They take them down, we put them up. I need every division to get to us the number of new monuments that have been erected in your division. All right, I'm going to Georgia, close to Vidalia, Georgia tomorrow, Saturday. I'll be speaking there. The camp there has established a beautiful monument there. They've got a park there. Virginia has some. Alabama has some. There are lots of monuments new monuments that have been raised. Not only that, there are lots of giant flagpoles on interstates that have been raised. We need an accounting. How many of those have been raised? We've been busy, folks. It's time to tell the world what the heck we've been doing. We haven't been sitting down on our tails. We've been working. We've been saving monuments, and we've been putting up new monuments and putting up new flags. And we also want to know how many of those monuments that was supposed to be removed we took possession of and put them in a better location. How many of those Confederate monuments was on part of town that only derelicts and drunks ever wandered by, and nobody really saw it and appreciated it, and the county commission or town commission wanted to get rid of, and we said, whoa, you can't get rid of it. We're going to go to the law. We're going to go to court. They said, well, you take it. And we took it and put it on a different site. I know we've done that in Louisiana, and you've done it in others. I want to know how many of those we've got, because when the Forest Plaza is rededicated, people, we're putting out a press release to the world, and we're going to tell the world how it's not just the Forest Plaza, but all the monuments from Virginia to New Mexico. There is a Jefferson Davis Park in the state of Washington. that I can't wait to take a look at. We're going to tell the world about those things that we have saved. We're on the offensive. We're moving forward. Yes, some have been lost, but more have been built and established and saved. We need to tell. Number one, you and I need to know that, so that we understand that our efforts in the Sons of Confederate Veterans has not been for want. It hasn't been a loss. We've been successful. So I'm going to be talking to division commanders and asking them, let's start getting that together, because when we rededicate that Forest Plaza, folks, that's going to be a big deal. And we're going to have a special speaker there. Well, actually 3 speakers that I know of right now that I'm planning on. And one of them is going to be talking about Nathan Bedford Forrest, the abolitionist and civil rights worker. And indeed, Nathan Bedford Forrest did what no Yankee general ever did. At his own personal expense, he freed slaves. There's not a damn Yankee general out there that ever did that, not to the extent that Nathan Bedford Forrest did. And he also was an advocate of Black education and Black civil rights. And we're going to talk about it, because all they want to talk about, the enemy, they want to talk about Nathan Bedford Forrest, the Ku Klux, or the slave trader. Well, this is not a case of the of dog biting man. This will be a case of man bites dog. This is newsworthy, folks. And it's going to be newsworthy because of the way we're talking about Nathan Bedford Forrest. It's going to be newsworthy because we're talking about all the monuments we've saved, all the monuments that we've erected, all the giant flags that we put up. And we're going to tell people we're just begun to fight. And that depends on you, folks. Now, the Forest Plaza, as I said, right now, we need more people to get involved in the, show me that neck ribbon if you don't mind. Everybody that joins the 21st Century Confederate Heroes, you will get, this is a copy of the neck ribbon that you will get. Once all the neck ribbons have been paid for, I think we're looking at 1,500 members. Once we get all that done, we're talking about getting a lapel pin greatly reduced from this medal for people that can wear it if they don't want to wear the medal all the time. But that'll only be done after we've completed the 1,500 minimum to get the banknote taken care of and the Forest Plaza reestablished. Now, folks, why is it important to take care of that banknote? Because we're spending from somewhere around $10,000 to $12,000 a month servicing that banknote. I want that money so I can spend the bulk of it telling the world why they should be proud of our Southern heritage and why we believe the South was right. We're going to do that. We can't do it right now because we just don't have the revenue to do it. Our revenue is going to a bank. So this effort, and why I call it the 21st Century Confederate Heroes, because listen, to $1,000, you have to be heroic to say, hey, I know that's a lot of money, but I'll do it. Now, you can do it by putting $100 down and then say over the next 18 months, I'll finish it up. You can do that. That's fine. That's no problem. Moose, do we have that Chuck McMichael sent us? Did he send you the copy of the?
Yes.
Do we have? Show me that. There we go. This, if you'll go, I see. Do we have where? Oh, did he send you the email address where that could be picked up?
Let me check, Commander.
We have on the Taylor camp, past Commander-in-Chief Chuck McMichael had this attached to the Taylor camp. It's a form that you can go to and fill out and get. If you don't want to go electronically, you can fill this out and send it in with your donation. Just be sure, if whether it's $100 or $1,000 or anything in between, you make the check out to Sons of Confederate Veterans, but in your memo put 21st Century Confederate Heroes, or just 21st Century if you have to. But that's where it'll go. And if we can find it, we'll flash it up here. If not, I'll get it out. We'll see about getting it out to you later. It was on my email, and I I thought I sent it to you, but I don't know if I did or not. But this is something that we can literally pay down that debt. If we don't pay that debt down by this time next year, the interest rate could eat us up. We've already knocked it down to less. The debt is less than $1 million. Just think about it. We've gone from almost 2 million down to less than 1 million, and we're still working on it. And with the 21st Century Confederate Heroes coming through, we're paying it all off. We want to pay that off before next year, so this interest rate does not eat us up. I don't want to continue to send money to a bank when that money needs to be going where you as a member join up to do, and that's to fight for the cause of the South, to vindicate the South. And we can do that. But we need to get you in the 21st Century Confederate Heroes. And if we can do that, and oh, look, by the way, I've got something here. It looks like I'm going to read this out. This is where you can go, folks. And I'm sorry, but it's 21ch.pdf parentheses SCVTAYLORCAMP.com. That's 21st Century PDF SCVTaylorCamp.com, and I'll try to get that out where everybody can see it. I'm sorry, Moose, I thought I sent that to you, but anyway. All right, but folks, we can literally take that money that's going to a bank and go on the offensive. We can take the fight to the enemy, and we can make the SCV such a well-known entity throughout the country, especially in the South, that retention won't be a problem anymore. In my experience, I've been in the SCV for 35 years or longer. My biggest thing in retention, I've noticed people drop out because they join the SCV wanting to see something done about their heritage and about the degradation of Southern culture, and they don't see it. So they drop out. To recruit, it's hard to recruit because they don't know that the SCV is an honorable organization. All they know about Confederate stuff is what they hear in the media. It's evil, it's wicked, it's tainted with racism and slavery. We've got to tell our side of the story, and we cannot do it if we're taking that money and spending it on a bank. And that's why I'm invested in this, and I'm asking you to become invested in this. Every SCV camp should be a member of this organization, 21st Century Confederate Hero. If every SCV camp would join up, do you realize that note would be liquidated before the end of this year? That's 800 camps. Yes, we can do that. So, let's get busy. I was just speaking yesterday to the James W. Nicholson camp. They'd already put up $500 for the museum, and they recently voted another $500, and they are full-fledged members of the 21st Century Confederate Heroes. So if that little camp in Ruston, Louisiana can do it, then so can you. Your camp can do it. You can join up, put $100 up and say, hey, in the next 16, 18 months, I'll get the I'll get the rest of it to you. We need to do this, not because I'm going to tell you, I'll be the first one to admit this. I am doing this not nearly so much because I'm a fan of the museum. I am very much so, but I am a fan of defending the South and vindicating the cause for which our ancestors fought. I'm looking at this plaque right up here. It's Private John Wesley Kennedy, Company F, 38th Mississippi Volunteer Infantry. He didn't go to war so that some rich plantation owner could own slaves. He didn't go to war because he hated America. No, he defended his home against a cruel invader, and he believed, as I believe, in the right as granted to us by our colonial forefathers in the Constitution. That's what they were defending, and it's our job to see to it that their legacy lives on. Now, folks, I could go on all night, but I'm not going to belabor the point. Join the Confederate Legion and join the 21st Century Confederate Heroes. And I'll try my best to get out to the various groups that email address so that you can go to it, not email, but web address. So you can go to it and download that information so you can fill it out and send it in. In the next year, really in the next 3 months, I will be contacting various brigade commanders. Brigade commanders, you are very important, and you will be hearing from the commander-in-chief, either by email, by phone, and we may end up doing some Zoom meetings. So we will be working with brigade commanders for a change, and I've already collected the names of every brigade commander in every division. If you're a brigade commander and you don't like your job, you better quit now. That's all I got to say. But if you're a brigade commander and you want to fight the good fight, come on, brother. We're going to win this fight. So with that said, I'm going to look forward to next month when Paul Graham will be on with us, and our Deputy Chief of Heritage Operations and Promotion, Harrison Dawes, will be with us also. And we will see you folks in. Until then, stay Southern, keep the fight up, and remember, our ancestors did not fight because they hated America. They fought because they loved the real America. And if you don't believe the people that there are people who hate the real America, you have been watching the news lately. So God bless you all. God save the South. Thank you, Harrison, for helping us out this week.
My honor, Commander.